Hi, I'm Dr. Heidi Koch. I am the owner and the medical director of the spa at West Glen in West Des Moines, Iowa. We are a medical spa and a day spa. And I'm also your host here at the Dr. Heidi Koch Show. What I hope to cover in this show and the goals that I have is to provide you with information relating to health, wellness, anti-aging, beauty, lifestyle. So we're going to cover a whole range of topics. Last week I introduced a chart that is kind of an outline for this show. If you remember, you are in the center, and on the outside are a whole bunch of different categories relating to health and wellness. Everything from diet, nutrition, physical activity, stress, sleep, and all of these categories somehow affect you. So we are going to provide you with information how these can affect you positively or negatively and what we can do about them. So we hope to educate you, give you information that you can make educated decisions on what kind of lifestyle you want to lead. And hopefully we will all have a healthier and more energetic life from this. So for today's topic, we are just going to scratch the surface of a big entity that affects all of us. Some of us experience a lot of it, some of us not as much, some of us handle it really well, others not so well. So we are going to dive in, just kind of touching the tip of the iceberg on this one and how it affects your body. So when we come back from break, we are going to look at stress and all the different problems that it causes for us. Hi, welcome back. So we are going to dive right into the subject of stress and how it affects our body. Stress is a very interesting topic. Scientists and biologists have had the hardest time trying to put a definition to this. And part of the reason is that it is very individual to each person. What they have kind of settled on as a definition is that it is the body's response to any demand or threat, which is very general. So what they have been able to do is kind of narrow this down and tell you the different components of what makes a stressor. So a stressor is anything that causes you stress. So the four components of stress are: one, that there's some novelty to it. So what that means is that it's new to you. So basically anything that you're not familiar with can be a stressor to you. The second part is that there is some sort of unpredictability. So you just don't know how things are going to turn out, and that can be a little scary for people. The third is that there's some sort of potential threat. That can be something, a threat to you physically, a threat to you emotionally. And then the last one is that there's some sort of loss of control. So each stressor that we have will have at least one of these components, but it could potentially have all four of them. So this does help with the definition a little bit of what an actual stress response is. So I think a good example of the individuality of stress is if you take, for example, a roller coaster ride. There are people in the front of the roller coaster who are excited, wide-eyed, hands up in the air, ready to go. There are people in the back who are white-knuckled, holding onto that guardrail, and they can't wait to get their feet back on the ground. So after that roller coaster ride, was it a stressful roller coaster ride? For some it is, and for some it's not. So then we look at the different components, and in what I do at the spa, I have patients who come in for first-time Botox treatments, and they are stressed. And if I look at that, they're stressed because it's new. They've never done it before. It's a little bit unpredictable because they don't know what's going to happen. There's a threat, potentially, that they think may hurt them. Loss of control, maybe not a big one, but I guess they could get up out of the chair and go. But so first-time Botox treatments can be stressful. Typically when they come back, they know what's happening. It's pretty predictable, and so that stress has gone away. So let's look at how the body reacts to stress and what is happening. So we have two big components here. One, this is your brain, and we have two areas of interest in the brain. Then we also have, these are your kidneys. Sitting right on top of your kidneys are your adrenal glands. So right here is something called your hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is a small area of your brain but has a very big job. The hypothalamus is what detects stressors. So when there is something that could potentially harm you, it's your hypothalamus who notices it. What it does is it communicates right here to your pituitary gland. Your pituitary gland is at the base of your brain, and it creates a lot of different hormones for many different functions in your body. So the hypothalamus tells the pituitary we need to be on alert. The pituitary sends signals down to your adrenal glands. And it's the adrenal glands that create cortisol. Cortisol has many functions in the body, but one of its big ones is that it is the stress hormone, or what we think of as the stress hormone. So your cortisol is the hormone that creates that fight or flight instinct in us. It's when your heart rate goes up, your blood pressure can go up, your muscles are tense, your metabolism gets going, you're ready for that fight or flight response. So what happens then is your cortisol goes into your blood, you have that instantaneous feeling, and it's a feeling meant to protect you. So your cortisol level goes up in your blood, and hopefully what happens then is that your hypothalamus realizes there's cortisol there and it turns it off. So this is a short-term thing that happens. You feel or your brain identifies the stress, you get cortisol in your blood, you overcome whatever stressor there is, and everything turns off. So this is ideally how this whole thing is supposed to work. Unfortunately, in our lives, we lead very stressful lives. So whether you have lots of little stresses or you have great big stresses, unfortunately, this can be a constant thing that's going. What happens in that case is your adrenal glands are working and working. They're making a lot of cortisol, which is using a lot of the nutrients in your body. So you become depleted in certain nutrients, and then on top of that, your adrenal glands become tired. Eventually, they start to wear out a little bit, and this whole system gets a little off kilter. When that happens is when we start to feel fatigued and like you can't handle even the tiniest little stressor. People have problems getting simple daily activities done. They have problems getting out of bed. So this can be a big problem for some people. So let's talk about what it is that your body sees as a stress, because I think you'll be surprised at some of this. So there are basically 4 categories of what your body thinks are stresses. And your body doesn't care which of these 4 it is, it's going to react the same way. So I think when we think of a stress or a stressor, we all think of kind of the mental, emotional stress, which is definitely a big one. So you have a mental and emotional stressors. This can be anger, fear, when you feel pressure, when you're scared. Any of that fits into your mental, emotional. So one component is that. A big component, and one I think that is very overlooked, is blood glucose imbalance, which goes a lot into what we were talking about last time with trying to keep blood sugars even. So this is if you eat unhealthy, eat a lot of high glycemic foods, if you skip meals, this is all a big stress on your body. The next one is inflammation. Inflammation we each have varying degrees of inflammation. Any chronic disease has some component of inflammation. So if it's arthritis, if it's allergies, if it's diabetes, any of those have some component of inflammation, which is adding stress to your body. And then the last one is an interesting one. It's sleep disturbance. And I think this one is kind of a catch-22 because when you're stressed, your cortisol is up, really hard to sleep when you have a high level of cortisol. So that causes sleep problems, and then so it's just a catch-22, and then sleep problems itself can be an added stressor. So, like I said, the body doesn't care which stressor it is, it's gonna react the same way. So when we come back, we're gonna look at what we can do to treat the imbalance or the dysfunction of that hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis, and how we can prevent and hopefully maintain a lower stress life. So when we come back, we'll get to that. Hi, welcome back. I'm Dr. Heidi Koch. So what we were talking about is how stress affects our body, and we reviewed the 4 components that are similar to many of the stressors. We also went through kind of the main hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis, which controls our stress response in our body, and talked about how with lots of stressors that can get a little bit out of whack. We also then covered how our body sees stress. These are the 4 different components that our body sees stress, and this is important to know because when we go to treat our stress and our imbalance or dysfunctional stress, this is what we need to pay attention to. So for the first category I'm going to look at is the blood glucose imbalance. And really, I have at the spa at West Glen a 4-page handout that goes through the proper diet for controlling blood glucose imbalance for people who have some stress issues. So with this, really what it comes down to is a healthy diet, but what you need to do is you need to eat 5 to 6 times a day. You need to avoid all those high glycemic index foods such as refined sugars, white rice, pasta. So that entails everything, chips, cakes, cookies, all of that, sugary soda pops. Those are all into here. We also try and limit your caffeine. Caffeine is okay in the morning, but really past that, you need to limit that. All of this just helps keep that glucose level stable, keeps that insulin level stable, because when that gets all highs and lows, it causes your body not only stress, but it can cause some inflammation, which takes us to the second part, which is inflammation. So, like I mentioned, every chronic disease has some component of inflammation. So you want to do the best that you can at controlling whatever chronic disease you may have. So if you say you're diabetic, if you're a type 2 diabetic, you want to do the best that you can, whatever that entails as far as losing weight, if you do need to take some medications to keep everything as well maintained as you can. We will also, when we talk about some nutrients, there's a very important one that fits into this inflammation category. For sleep disturbance is a hard one, and I've been impressed with the number of people who have sleep issues. Basically, we want to look at good sleep hygiene. So what is sleep hygiene? A lot of this is common sense, but you want to have a nighttime routine. You want things to be comfortable for you. So whether that's a certain temperature, certain lighting, all of those things you need to determine what helps you. Also, you need to, again, avoid the caffeine before bed, but I think one of the biggest ones that is hard for a lot of people is you need to control your screen time prior to going to bed. And what that means is TVs, computers, iPads, phones. All of those, preferably 30 plus minutes before going to bed, they need to be put away. Why is that the light from those inhibits your melatonin. Melatonin is a hormone that your brain produces to help you kind of get into that relaxed sleep state. So you can do some things with your sleep, just kind of functioning to have more of a routine. And then the last one is the mental and emotional stress. And with this, you need to focus on several different things. There are lots of breathing techniques. There is a great program, it's called Heart Math, which we'll talk about in some future shows, which is very helpful for people who have that emotional mental stress. Also, whatever relaxes you, whether it's getting a massage, whether it's certain exercises, whether it's meditation, you just kind of have to find for you what works. Also, you know, in that category, if going to a counselor helps to eliminate some of that stress and learn how to handle the stress, that's a good idea also. So those are the different things that we need to do to take care of each of these different categories. I also mentioned at the beginning that as your adrenal glands are working hard to make cortisol, they're really burning through a lot of nutrients. So we know which nutrients that the adrenal glands use, and they're depleting the rest of your body. So we need to be aware of that, and oftentimes we need to supplement what we're using. Luckily, there are some compounds or some adrenal mixtures that have a lot of these into one pill, so you're not taking multiple pills. So for example, one of them is adrenal. Now this is from Orthomolecular. I would recommend that you use pharmaceutical strength supplements or pharmaceutical supplements. You can find these at some medical doctors, some chiropractors, some specialty compound pharmacists will have them, but they have the highest grade and are controlled as far as the pharmacy goes. So adrenal contains vitamin C. That is the biggest vitamin that your adrenals burn through, is your vitamin C. So it contains vitamin C. It also contains some of the others that I am going to touch on in just a moment. Another big one, and this is actually my favorite supplement overall, is magnesium. 75% of Americans are deficient in magnesium, and it is used in many, many different reactions in your body. One of them is for stress control. So magnesium is a compound that comes in many different forms. It can come in citrate, oxide, malate, glycinate, taurate. They're different forms, and they do absorb differently into your body. So when you're looking for a magnesium, you either want a combination one or one that has taurate, glycinate, or malate. How I tell people to take this is to start with one capsule in the morning and night, and then as their body tolerates, you can increase that. So this is one that almost all of us need. So that is our magnesium. Another one that we need is a probiotic, and these are two different probiotics. Basically, probiotics decrease the inflammation that is in your GI system, which is a huge source of inflammation for us. So taking one of these every day just maintains and decreases that inflammation. There are several, I even tell some of my patients that there are 5 supplements that anybody should be on, and this is one of them. And then after that, there are some herbal remedies that help, things such as ashwagandha, rhodiola, and those are combined into the adrenal compound one that I showed you. Now, the last thing I want to touch on is just some other compounds that help people to kind of maintain their stress level. So one of my favorites is L-theanine, which is a compound that you can take when you have some initial stress. If you're feeling that stress come on, you can take this. I relate it to, you take it and about 30 minutes later, it's like taking a deep breath of fresh air. So I like the L-theanine. There's also certain essential oils that help with different stress relief, anxiety relief that are available for roll-ons, and it's the aroma that kind of helps with that. And then one of my last favorites is this one. It's called Adrenocalm. It's for those nights when you have that wired but tired feeling. So you're tired, you just can't fall asleep. This is something that you can use before going to bed. It's a cream you put on that decreases your phosphatidylserine, that will decrease your cortisol. So this is a handy one to have around. So as you can see, when treating and maintaining stress, you need to look and treat all of these different components and then replace your nutrients with that your cortisol or that your adrenal glands is using. So hopefully we provided you with some information that can get you on the right track for maintaining a decreased stress life, and hopefully this will get you off to a healthier and more well-balanced life. Does this sound familiar to any of you? You're trying to get your kids ready for school in the morning. They've left their laundry all over the floor. The dog has tracked in mud from outside and you're going to be late for work. Does this create stress? Absolutely. So if you want to learn where our stress comes from, how our body deals with it, and what we can do to maintain a less stressful life, join us on the next Dr. Heidi Koch Show.